Hello everybody, my name is Ishan and welcome to Sonovi. Today we'll be doing the LeetCode Question 283 Move Zeros. And now before we get into it, I have a few quick things to say. So this channel is called Sonovi, and it's a channel hosted by my friend Sutton and I, and we do a lot of gaming and coding videos, so if any of these things interest you, make sure to check out some of the other videos we have posted. Also, we have a quick disclaimer: by no means am I a professional programmer. I'm not going to do the best runtime complexities, I'm not going to have the best spacetime complexities, I'm just doing my best trying to get ready for college. So if you have any tips or tricks you can help me with, feel free to comment them down below, and I'll see if implement them, and maybe we can release another video of the same problem. So let's start out by reading the question. Given an array nums, write a function to move all zeros to the end of it, while maintaining the relative order of the non-zero elements. So given our input array 0, 1, 0, 3, 12, we know the output's going to be 1, 3, 12, 0, 0. And an interesting thing about this question is that we know that the very first non-zero value we find is going to be put into the first value of the array that we're returning. We know the second non-zero value we find is going to be put into the second value, and the third non-zero value is going to be placed into the third value. Additionally, we know for a fact that all zeros are going to be at the end of the array, and we can use this to our advantage to solve the actual problem. One more thing to keep in note is that we must solve this problem in place without making a copy of the array. So we can't create any more arrays, we can't create anything like that that requires a lot of storage. All of the actions in this algorithm are going to take place by modifying the actual array. So before we start coding, let's quickly discuss the algorithm we're going to be using. Keeping in mind what I said earlier, we can apply that to this problem. So we know that the first value we find is going to be placed in the first position we found. So what we could do is we could iterate through the array and say, if we find a value if we find the first value that is not a 0, just swap it with position 1. So we can switch the 1 and 0, and so we'd have 1, 0, 0, 3, 12. And then we can just keep going forward until we get to the second value, and we can say, okay, swap it with the second position. So the 3 would just swap with the 0, and we'd keep going on until we solve the actual algorithm. So it does sound a bit difficult, so let's go ahead and code it up and hopefully it'll make more sense. So all of my code is going to be in Python3, but it's just as applicable to different languages like Java, JavaScript, and C++. You just have to know how to implement the different factors. And starting off with our code, we know that the first non-zero value we find is going to go into the first position of the array. The second is going to go into the second position, and the third is going to go into the third position. So we're going to need a constant variable that's going to be increasing every time we find a non-zero value. And in this case, that's going to be equal to swap position. We can go and set that equal to 0. And from here, we can just iterate through the array. So we can say for I in range, and then length of nums. After that, we can just do a simple check whether or not the variable we're currently at is equal to 0. So we can say if nums I does not equal 0, so this is what's going to happen every time we find a non-zero integer. And now we just have to do a simple swap. So there are many ways to do swaps in Python, but here are one of the more popular ways. We can do nums I, comma, nums swap position, and that's just that's the swap position we found earlier. It's going to be changing every time we find a new value, and we can just set that equal to nums swap position, comma, nums I. And that's one way of doing it. That's just a simple swap, but I think it's Python exclusive, so we're going to be doing a bit more widely used way of swapping. And usually when we do swaps, we need a temporary variable. So we're going to set temp equal to 0. So now we can just go ahead and start the swap. So we're going to set our temporary variable equal to nums swap position, So this means whatever we have at the value of where we're trying to put the non-zero value, it'll be equal to temp. And then we can just set num's swap position equal to num's I. So let's say our swap position will be 0, and we got to the value of 1 for I, and we found a 1 at that position. So what we're going to do is we're going to set temp equal to num swap position, so we have a temporary variable equal to a 0, which is right here. And then what we're going to do is set num swap position, which is still the 0 that's highlighted right here, and just set it equal to num's I, which in this case is the 1. So now we're going to have a 1 right here, and as of right now, we just have 2 1s in a row. So we need to fix that by setting that equal to a 0, by saying num's I is equal to temp. So basically that's how we're just going to swap these two values. So we're going to say temp equals num swap position equals num's I, and num's I equals temp. So it's a very simple swap. However, after that, we know now that the next value we find is going to go into the second position in the array. So we can't do the first position anymore, or the 0 position. So what we're going to have to do is increment swap position by 1. And plus equals 1 just means swap position equals swap position plus 1. So this should work. So let's go ahead and run the code. It works, and we can go ahead and submit. So you have 52 milliseconds, faster than 56.05%. So it's definitely not the fastest solution ever, but it definitely works. I think we can submit a few times and back up to 91.25, 56. So some variability, but it's definitely has the potential to be a really good solution. Anyways, thank you for staying till the end of the video. I hope you're able to understand my solution. If you have any questions or advice, make sure to let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe for some more content like this in the future. I'll see y'all in the next video.